when people ask me, like, what do you want? I'm like, I want you to be genuinely furious. There's a lot of things to be furious about. And I actually don't care if it's the thing that I'm furious about.
Yeah.
And not all the Democrats need to be furious about the same things. Some Democrats, and like, you can be furious about whatever it is that you think your constituents are furious about, or whatever it is that animates you as a politician, and try to bring people along with you. And like that, I think, has been the thing that when people are like, the Democratic base is unhappy, to me, that is what they like is missing, right? They're like, we are really mad. Like, just be mad too. Like, also do stuff, but just be mad too, for starters. All right, we are back. She's the co-founder and president of Run for Something and author of the forthcoming book, When We're in Charge, The Next Generation's Guide to Leadership, out this May. It's Amanda Litman. What's up, girl?
I'm hanging in there. How are you doing, Tim?
Well, I'm alive. I'm here. We're all here. I'm doing my best. I didn't make it through the whole speech last night. I had to watch Alyssa this morning. I guess I was a little tired after a big Mardi Gras weekend, but it was also really fucking long.
Mm-hmm.
But we're doing our best. I've been wanting to have you on. It's unfortunately Donald Trump's makes it hard to get off of doing just the news because there's so much shit happening. But you're doing some work that's more long lead that I want to talk about. But before we get to that, running for something, I did want to put your strategist hat on. You did some of that for a little while, and ask you what you thought about the Democrats' various responses last night. AOC and Jasmine Crockett, like, I'm not going. Some of them, she's on Instagram. Al Green shouting. Some gals are in pink. Some people are holding signs. Some people are doing nothing. What did you make of it?
I think the only goal of any of the responses to the speech last night had to be make it a bigger spectacle than the speech itself. And none of them really succeeded in doing that. So
a little F for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of the view. Here's my counter punch to that. Me and you are usually aligned on this. Like, I want more is more. Get out there, swing and miss sometimes. It's okay. Donald Trump misses a lot of pitches. He got elected twice, but be out there. That said, on a night like that, like, it's going to be tough. Like, what are you going to do that's not going to be kind of cringe? Like, it's very challenging to kind of think of something that'd be actually useful. And to me, it's almost like I just probably wouldn't have even shown up and then woken up this morning and gotten on social media or gotten on the Bulwark YouTube or gotten on whatever and just started going, about the economy, about Elon, about all the other things that are on message. Like, what was it kind of was it like a battle they couldn't win, I guess?
I think you're probably right that there was nothing like in the room or even online they could have done in the moment. But I kind of wish that if they were going to try something, they had like made a bigger deal out of it, or at least been more organized. This like one-off holding up the signs, the pink suits, the sort of like boring speech after, which was so late at night that who watches that anyway? Like, it was probably a lose-lose. But if they were going to try, I wanted them to go bigger.
Yeah. To the speech afterwards, Alyssa Slotkin, I had to get your take on this because as a former Republican, I was like, this is pretty good for me. But I do wonder how somebody that's in touch with Democratic grassroots thought about it. I want to play one clip from Alyssa Slotkin.
After the spectacle that just took place in the Oval Office last week, Reagan must be rolling in his grave. We all want an end to the war in Ukraine, but Reagan understood that true strength required America to combine our military and economic might with moral clarity. And that scene in the Oval Office wasn't just a bad episode of reality TV. It summed up Trump's whole approach to the world. He believes in cozying up to dictators like Vladimir Putin and kicking our friends like the Canadians in the teeth. He sees American leadership as merely a series of real estate transactions. As a Cold War kid, I'm thankful it was Reagan and not Trump in office in the 1980s. Trump would have lost us the Cold War.
Okay, on the one hand, Reagan-loving boomers are going to vote in the midterms, so there's something to be said for that. On the other hand, what'd you think about the Reagan hagiography from the Democratic response?
The target audience for that was no one under the age of 48, 47.
Well, excuse me. It got me. There's a handful of nerds, of never Trumper nerds, who are in their early 40s that it hit. But that's okay. I don't certainly
a few
not under
never
40.
Trumper elder millennials,
Yeah.
and that's about it, which is fine. That's an audience that needs pandering to too. Not my cup of tea, and I think not quite speaking to a lot of the Democratic bases right now. But that's okay. Not everything has to be for everyone.
What'd you make of the senators? Again, I'm trying to I want to give them credit for stuff, because it's like do more, do more, and then they do more, and people are like, eh.
Yeah.
But they had all these guys doing these shit that ain't true videos, and I would play that for you, but it doesn't really work in audio form. You have to go onto your Instagram to see it. But where it's basically like all of the senators had a similar script about the way that Trump and Elon have been lying. What'd you make about that? What'd you make of that?
I think it's good to give them credit for trying stuff. And I saw that Elon and a bunch of the right-wing influencers were lifting it up, which means they were all lifting up, visual images that were like shit that ain't true about Trump and talking about prices. So in that sense, I think it's good to farm a little outrage. Is it the most effective social media content? Probably not. But baby steps in the right direction is better than baby steps in the wrong direction.
All right, I'm with you. Is there anybody out there that you think you've been they've been really nailing it the last 2 months?
I think AOC pretty typically is one of the better ones in which it seems so authentic. I think Chris Murphy's shtick is not always for me, but it does seem true to him, and I appreciate that. He seems genuinely furious and is communicating that in a way that really works. Other than that, I think we've still got a lot of wide open field for people to step up, which is, again, chaos is a ladder. Climate, Democrats, just fucking climate.
This is my point. That phrase is right. Genuinely furious. Mm-hmm. When people ask me what do you want? I'm like, I want you to be genuinely furious. There's a lot of things to be furious about, and I actually don't care if it's the thing that I'm furious about.
Yeah.
And not all the Democrats need to be furious about the same things. Some Democrats, and you can be furious about whatever it is that you think your constituents are furious about, or whatever it is that animates you as a politician, and try to bring people along with you. And that, I think, has been the thing that when people are the Democratic base is unhappy, to me, that is what they is missing, right? They're we are really fucking mad. Just be mad too. Also do stuff, but just be mad too, for starters.
Well, it's because when they're not mad, it makes us feel like the crazy ones for being mad. Right. I don't want to be gaslit. My rage is not misplaced. It is not invalid. It is totally legitimate. And if my elected leaders aren't showing that, or if they're oh, calm down, we're going to talk about the price of eggs. There's not an election for this shit for another 18 months. Be mad right now, and then channel my fury into something good. But be mad with me. It will make me feel better.
I agree. Feelings do matter. Maybe I'm a millennial, postmodern. I'm with it. Okay. I want to talk about Run for Something. You've been doing this. How many years have you been doing this for?
This is since Trump's first inauguration days. We're going on 8 years. You've
been doing the Lord's work. I love it. We do also get feedback from people what should I do? What should I do? And I think there is a sense of frustration of how can I be helpful? I want to help. And, there's phone calling, there's some other things. But I wanted to highlight what you're doing, because I think it's so important. And I just want to set the table with this, because I think it's not that it hasn't been important in all of the 8 years before that, but I think it's as important as ever right now, in this moment, March of 2025. And here's why I say that. I just made a list from my memory this morning when I woke up. I'm sure there are other examples of this, but of wave elections, of kind of weird things that I remember happening. I was in Iowa in 2006. This was a Democratic wave election. This guy, Dave Loebsack, who was a professor at the University of Iowa, who had no money and was a far left lib, ends up winning a district that nobody even ran ads in, right? He just was on the field, and he ends up being in Congress. 2009, Scott Brown. Everybody remembers that. A Massachusetts Senate race, but a Republican wins. Now he might seem kind of like a typical MAGA Republican, but he ran then as kind of a heterodox, centrist, kind of populist Republican. 2018, you were around for all this. Doug Jones. Kendra Horn wins in Oklahoma City. Joe Cunningham wins in Charleston. Max Rose in Staten Island. Susan Wild, who's still around, and she's a great congresswoman, wins in our district in Pennsylvania. Allred wins in George Bush's district in Dallas, and then ends up, becoming the Senate candidate. Doesn't win, but you can see the long-term value there. Like, these people won in unsuspecting places, but in order to win in unsuspecting places, like, you have to try, right? And I think that this year in 2026, if the Trump thing is as much of a shit show as we all expect it's going to be, people are going to be able to win in unexpected places. And so you got to be out there to do it. I gave a bunch of congressional examples, but you do this like all the way down the ballot. So like, talk about do you agree with me that like this is going to be the most ripe time? And do you feel like folks are going to respond to it?
I think that we Democrats have to mentally and practically prepare to win big in 2026, which feels like an insane thing to say right now. And the way we do that is by preparing to field as many candidates as possible for as many of these races as possible. And that recruitment work is happening now. In 2018, we worked with a woman running for state leg in Georgia, in like pretty rural Georgia, in a district that a Democrat had never competed in. In the like 50 years since they had drawn these maps, there had never been a Democrat on the ballot there. She ran, she won, because as it turns out, in a year where there's a wave election, giving people an alternative will allow someone else to show up and like actually take power. We have had this happen so many times over the years. We'll have the first or only Democrat to run in that race 5 years, 10 years ever, who will, if not win, come within a point or two. And all of a sudden in the next cycle, that district is a competitive race.
Yeah.
It is like the most basic building block of actually party building and of competing in these elections is to get a good candidate on the ballot. And it's not that hard. That's like the thing with running for office. It is hard work. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort, but it's actually not that difficult in terms of like logistics and communication. That's what Run for Something is here to do, is we help people figure all of that out once they've decided this is a step I want to take.
Yeah, I like that you said that about districts you never ran in. When we moved here to New Orleans, I like kind of looked at the state house map, and I said to my husband, I was like, now, if you want to run for state house, we could move to Kenner, which is in the New Orleans suburbs, because the Democrats don't run a candidate there. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that in a wave year, a Democrat could probably win in like the New Orleans suburbs, right? Like that's like the Oklahoma City congressional example I gave, right? Like there are places like that where there still is a lag. And I think that the other thing I wanted to just get your take on, because I think sometimes people like assume they can't do it or assume they shouldn't. I think that this is going to be a good year, like across the spectrum. I talk to Never Trumpers all the time who are like, I want to primary my Republican. I'm like, no, like depending on where you live, like just run as a Democrat. Like you could just switch parties and run. You can have some different views. And I think that's probably true for populist lefty Democrats too, right? Like, so I'm not even like saying, obviously I would prefer the Never Trumpers run, but I think across the board, having different types of views, particularly if they reflect where you are, like is a good thing. I think in these types of off years. What do you think about that?
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, especially when we're talking about state, local, or even congressional races, like you got to run for the place you're in. We should generally be aligned on values. Like Run for Something has an endorsement process. We want to make sure we're all generally aligned on, what we believe, but there's a lot of different ways to actually put those values into practice, depending on the community and what they want and what the like mechanics of the office are. And that, I think, when people are talking about like no litmus test, that's the flexibility we need to be at right now.
Yeah, you had some former Republicans, right? Like have been Run for Something candidates.
We have folks who really cross the spectrum. Basically, everyone we work with aligns as a Democrat or would align as a Democrat. A lot of these races are technically nonpartisan, but we've got folks ranging from like the most, DSA types, New York City city council candidates to like pretty conservative school board candidates in places like Alaska or Kansas or, outside in Texas. As long as they're all on the same page about what we're trying to accomplish, which is really like a pro-democracy, pro-education, pro-working families, pro climate change is real and we have a responsibility to do something about it type approach, we can get behind them.
What besides Congress might seem daunting for people. So like at these lower levels, what other types of races? You mentioned school board, state leg. Is there anything else that you're
So we're thinking about state house, state senate, city council, which especially when we're talking about housing, which I think is going to be one of the biggest issues in the next couple of years, city council or municipal offices, county commissions, which often in many places actually oversee elections. So if we're looking ahead to 2028, those are the kinds of pro-democracy positions we need. Library boards, hospital boards, mosquito abatement districts, coroners, about 1,300 counties elect coroners. There's about 500,000 elected offices in the United States. Most of them are not Congress, and most of them are totally winnable if someone is willing to put in the work and knock doors. And they're way more interesting, I think, and more fun than being a member of Congress.
What about the recruitment side? And obviously you guys are doing some people are coming to you. Folks are listening. They're like, I'm not going to run, but everybody has networks. Do you have any advice on that as far as like recruitment, figuring out the offices, finding people?
Yeah, so Run for Something has a site, runforwhat.net, you can go to. You can look up at your exact address what offices are up for you in 2025 or 2026. Fun fact, since Election Day, nearly 25,000 people alone have done that. They've gone and looked up what offices they might want to run for and started thinking about running for office. Our total pipeline is only about 200,000 or a little less, so huge number in just the last couple months. Once you do that, you'll start getting materials from our team about how to figure out which office is right for you and how to raise the money. But if you're able to identify like the problem you care about solving, if you're able to point to how the office you run for will give you power to solve it, and then why voters should want you to win, which is different than why you want to win. You want to win because winning is great and losing sucks. Voters want you to win because you're going to do something for them. Everything else we can teach you.
What have you seen so far out there? You mentioned a lot of people have come to the site. There's a lot of conversation about Dems being depressed. Do you feel like you're getting the level of interest in running that you did in 2018, more or less?
So in 2017 and then again in 2018, we had about 15,000 people each year sign up to run for office. We're about to exceed both those years total in just the first quarter of this year.
Wow.
It is record numbers. And we're seeing actually most of that come in since inauguration. And basically every time DOJ starts firing people or shutting down federal government offices, you see like another conversation about the terminations, we see hundreds and hundreds more people come into us. At the last couple of weeks, we've been averaging between 500 and 600 people a day thinking about running for office.
Awesome. All right. Where do people go for more information?
Runforsomething.net. You can learn more about us. You can give us money. You can volunteer. You can sign up to run and get all the information.
You have any other hot takes you want to share? You're always out there doing goody two shoes stuff. Maybe you want to let loose on something before you go.
If you want to feel my big rage today, I think this was one of those things yesterday. If you want to run against a octogenarian or septuagenarian Democratic elected official, especially in a primary, I think this will be a really good year to do it.
Okay. Primarying also. I also think it's going to be a good year for primarying. That's a good place to leave it. Amanda Litman, thank you so much for all your work and for coming on the pod. Let's hang out soon.
Thanks, Tim.
We'll see you. Everybody else, we'll be back here tomorrow for another edition of the Bulwark Podcast. See you all then. Peace.